here are the 3 key takeaways you can expect from the session. So let's start with the weekly chart of Hedera. Here we're seeing continuous sideways trading for Hedera, and one important thing is for 2 weeks within the 3 weeks window. So look at what happened during the last week of October and what happened this week. When we get to the daily chart, is going to be more clear. What we see are 2 long wicks from the top of the candlesticks, and that's the rejection from those resistance levels. Alright, and so that's why as of this moment, I'm still keeping this potential for a sign of weakness to appear at a higher percentage. So it may be showing a sign of weakness at this current level. Alright? However, this is not the end of the story. So this, going back to a second test, there's still a chance. I'm still keeping it around the green key level 29 cents to 33 cents. And when I say the story isn't over, when we move to the daily chart, we'll see what's actually going on over here. So this is a very interesting pattern that I've seen. If you are watching multiple sessions of mine, you'll see the same thing that's going on. For some altcoins, this dip that happened a few days back was lower than what we're seeing here in Hedera. But overall, they are exhibiting similar wave patterns. So after the October 10th event, that's probably a shakeout. That may likely be a selling climax on that day. And then subsequently, we don't really have a preliminary support period. That because of that outlier event. Okay, it probably has happened within the day in terms of the daily time frame if we really want to put in the Wyckoff analysis. Okay, in the weekly is a different story. Alright? Okay, so let's get back to the daily. So these are probably not LPS-wise, but instead, it was an automatic rally back in mid-October, just 3 days after the tariff announcement. And then subsequently, there was a sign of strength at the beginning of this month, or end of last month. Also, there are multiple tests. You can call that a second test and subsequent tests. It doesn't matter. They are basically tests of demand or how fearful people are, after the October 10th event. Alright? In some charts, this is a spring at the beginning of this month. Just last week actually, not too far. Not like November 1st. So, what we're going through now for Hedera is another sign of strength. It may take longer time for Hedera, and it may come down for a spring as well. Okay, so those are possibilities that I have to let you know, even though we are hoping to see a bounce upwards. And there are 2 breakout time points right here. One, if it really trades above this white resistance line around 19 cents 80, like what it did October 29 to November 1st. This is the first time point around November 22nd or 21st that it can break outside of this downtrend. The other time point is further down into somewhere near December 19th. Okay, if the price continues to trade sideways like this, eventually it will get trapped into this corner, assuming it's trading above the red key level of around 17 cents 50. Okay? Of course, if you say, oh, what if it drops even lower, then the date will be pushed even further down. It's probably somewhere near the end of the year or the beginning of next year. Yeah, somewhere around the beginning of next year, if that really is the case. But we're still a bit far from that, and I hope the breakout happens sooner, okay? Like the first 2 time points that we mentioned. This resistance line has been broken last Friday. So now that resistance, I can turn it to an uptrend support line. As long as the drop, like the one today that's happening, isn't falling below the support line, it's going to eventually get to the point where we talk about somewhere near November 17th to the 22nd. So depending on how the trading looks like, right? If it continues to trade, when it gets to above the yellow dashed line, it moves sideways, essentially that's technically falling outside of the white slope, the dashed line. And that's still okay, because that's heading towards the breakout time point we first talked about. But there's a second time point here. Assuming it doesn't break the white line, by November 17th, next Monday, sometime between now till then, there is a chance for Hedera to break outside of this downward trend. Alright, so although it's not as clear or as close in time as in some other altcoins that I just covered earlier today, this may be a recovery sign for Hedera. While we still have a chance, maybe it's kind of at the lower end, there's still a chance, and we are probably going to see a climb to challenge this level. So maybe that's a backup on last point of support, somewhere around the this level, between the orange key level of 20 cents and this intermediate resistance of around 23 cents, 21 to 23 cents. Alright, it may trade sideways over here and then eventually shoot to the new distribution cycle in the daily time frame. Last time it reached the green key level of 29 cents. Alright, from the weekly perspective, that's why I put in like a second tag over here. In the daily is a new climax, but for weekly, it hasn't finished its complete distribution cycle. Unless this was a period of accumulation, which is kind of weird because it's like there is another distribution cycle that we have gone through in July compared to that of the beginning of the year, which I inclined to believe that's not the case. Alright, so that's a quick summary for Hedera. Thanks for joining me.